I had some friends at work that have asked me, two or three friends over time have asked me about mastering music and what's all involved in it. And they seem kind of intrigued, seem kind of interested in what I had to say. Some said I should start a side business doing it. But you know what I thought to start? I thought I may give some people out there that have thought about doing mastering on their own, give you some advice on what you need, some guidelines to follow that will make your learning curve really short compared to me. I mean, I've been studying mastering for, 10 years now. So let me give you some advice if you're interested on what you need to buy first. And then I'll talk to you about the guidelines and some myths that need to be busted and, what's to follow in the digital age and all that. So what you need to buy, let's go through the grocery list. But first, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You're probably going, Joey, why would I listen to you? This audio's terrible. The video, the lighting is really dark. This is not a good video as far as audio and video quality. That's because I don't have time to mess with it. I work all the time. I'm lazy. I don't really care about videos. I know I probably should, but I'm just talking to you. So you may think, I don't know if I want to listen to this guy, but I think after what you hear what I have to say, you go, you know what? Maybe he's right on. Maybe I need to do some things like he says. So I do apologize for the video quality and the audio quality, but it is what it is. I'm using an iPad mini. That's all I'm using right now. So let's get back to the topic. What you need to purchase to do a professional song, professional audio. First off, you need an interface. It doesn't have to be the best interface in the world. You could start with kind of an entry level, a Scarlett 2i2. You could start there. It's two XLRs, and it's got some 1/4 inch. They're combo jacks. On that, besides that, you would need a good set of monitors. They don't have to be ultra expensive. A flat response monitor. You need a computer with some decent RAM, and you would need now your recording software. Let's talk about that. You don't have to have the latest professional version of Pro Tools to sound good. But this is what you do have to have, and this is where people mess up. You can buy a cheap software, $200, somewhere around there, but you got to make sure it has these things. It needs to have a parametric EQ. It needs to have a compressor, a transparent compressor. It needs to have a limiter, and it needs to have an RMS meter. If you have those four things, you're golden. If you do not have those things and someone has some mumbo, they're bragging about something that you haven't heard of before, those are the four things that you use in mastering. If you don't have those four things, or at least three of the four, you cannot master. It will not sound good. It will not sound professional. And so you're playing with the toy. If you're going to spend $200 on a software and it doesn't have that, and I know these days they're getting away from some of that stuff to make you want to upgrade and buy more. So, but just keep that in mind when you buy software. I use Studio One, which was fine. It's easy to use. It worked fine for me. But I'm not endorsing any software. I'm sure probably Pro Tools is the best, but it's your personal preference. Studio One, super easy to use. So what else you need to buy? You need a couple microphones. I would get probably like an SM57 because it's a good flat response mic and it's good for everything. It's good for a lot of things. Great on recording guitars. You can even use it on vocals, but I would not. For vocals, I would invest the money in a large diaphragm condenser mic. They're not expensive, but the way they work, they excel at vocals, and that's probably the most important thing in your song. So make sure you get those two things. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing. I think that pretty much covers it. So let's get started on, first we'll start out about the recording process. This part I'm not really into, but we'll talk about it. So when you go to record, you want to have your faders at 0, of course, at 0. And you want to adjust your trim knob to where the maximum, this is a myth. This is where things really get hairy and get messed up. Is you want to record to where only up to -6, -5. Do not go to 0. And you're going to go, Joey, why not go to 0? You're going to say, Joey, that is a very dull, bland recording. It's dull. It's lifeless. Well, what you don't realize is that gives you headroom when you go to raise the volume to CD quality. And what you use to raise the volume is your limiter, not your individual channels. So it's not your faders. That's where people get messed up. So go ahead and have your whole mix mixed down to the master fader. You're only pushing -5 at the most. And so after you get your mix done like you want it, you got everything like you got it, you applied your EQs, and we may do I'll do another video if people are interested next time. I got a lot to talk about on EQs. So we can talk about that on the next video if people are interested. So once you've got that part done, you've got your level at -5, -6, no higher. Let's just talk about this. In the old days, in the 80s, with like a CD recorder, you wanted to get to 0. You wanted to get to the red, get it as hot as you can without clipping, and that gave you a hot recording. But digital doesn't work that way. So that's why I was saying the #1 myth: don't record above -5. Nothing above -5, because that's where your headroom lies. So the next step is your compressor. You may want to do compressors on some individual tracks, maybe on guitar. I always notice guitar needs a little compression because it kind of disappears in the mix. So add a little compression there. Vocals, I would stay away from compression just a little bit to bring it to life. Just a hair of compression on vocals. After you do that, you'll have your master out. On your master out, apply a compressor. I always say do about 2.2 to 1 ratio. That's pretty good for a softer ballad. If you're playing a rock song or a little harder song, you may want to go 2.5 to 1. You may even go higher, maybe go up to 3 to 1. Just experiment on the ratio to where you get what sounds best to your ears. The same goes with the attack. The same goes with the release of the compressor. You got to use your ears. You got to listen really close to a compressor, what it's doing, because it's very nominal. But when you play it back, you'll go, oh, okay, I see about that now. So compressors, a lot of it is done by ear. The ratios, work with it. Just play with it, and it'll work for you. I don't want to get into scientific definitions, because that's not going to really help you either. Just listen to your ears, but you got to listen close. So after you applied the compressor at 2.2 to 1 or 2.5 to 1, in the old days it was 4 to 1. That's too much compression. In the digital age, it'll be light, it'll be real thin, so don't compress that hard. But after you compress it, then send it to your limiter. And this is where the magic happens. In the limiter, you got 2 meter bars going up and down. The one on the left is constantly going up to about -6, -5, and not above. This is how you get your CD quality volume. In the limiter, you raise the volume on the limiter. Keep raising it. Raise it all the way up to where it's hitting at 0. And actually, you want it every few seconds to knock 1.5 decibels off the top or less. Some people today are really compressing hard and chopping a lot off the music, and it'll ruin your music. So some people are chopping 3 decibels almost the whole time. That's not good. I have a rule that I follow. I never chop over 1.5 and never constant. Never constant. If you do that, and then this is where the RMS meter comes in, the horizontal meter. Looks like almost like a regular cassette meter. It'll be kind of up in the red constantly because of your limiter. But on this, you'll have individual bars, little bars that move back and forth inside the meter. You want the bars to be between -10 and -12 most of the time. That's your overall volume level, basically. There's a little meter inside of it. If it's -10, -12, you're good. It's not too hot. It's not too loud a recording. It's not too soft. Basically, an RMS meter is a loudness meter. This is a godsend. If I'd have known this 10 years ago, I was constantly trying to get CD quality volume and couldn't get there, or, we didn't have any dynamic range, or there was something wrong. There was always something wrong. So between -10, -12 for a ballad, if you're playing a rock song, maybe between 9 and 10, you want that meter to move up to about 8 or 7. And in the RM, if you're sitting between 10 and 12 for the overall signal in your RMS meter, you're close to CD volume. You're really close. Now, you'll never obtain radio quality, radio volume, that is. You'll never obtain it because what people are sending them is already compressed. Then it hits their compressors at the radio station. Then it's even louder and lifeless. So you'll never get there. Don't try to compare to the radio. If you do, you're going to have terrible recordings. You're going to destroy them. So shoot for CD volume like you play in your home, not radio volume. So we've got that done. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you. Oh, yes, the last point. Make sure when you're cutting -1.5 off, and you're also running your RMS meter where it needs to be, you've got to have movement in your meter bars like they used to in the old. You got to have movement. If the bars are not moving and they're solid and they're pushing in the red and there is no movement, then you have no dynamic range. That means you're recorded at too hot a signal and you're not going to get any dynamic range. And that's because there's not enough headroom. So on that, when you finish, if you're at -10, -12, you're cutting 1.5 decibels off the top every once in a while, and those bars are moving up and down. You got a lot of movement between 0 and -8, -9. It's just moving a lot. You got a very dynamic recording that's probably at the loudness level you want, and you will have a great sounding recording. There was one more point I was going to mention to you on there. It's kind of slipped my mind. Oh well, we'll talk about it another time. So take these pointers. This will definitely help those that are getting started with some guidelines on what to have to make their learning curve way shorter than mine. So if you're interested, next time I'll do a video on EQ, a parametric EQ, and what instruments have to be EQ'd and why and how. And also to let you know that bass, to me, is the hardest instrument to get to sound correct in the mix. It's very hard. So take care. Anybody has any questions? Just hit me in YouTube. Let me know if you have any questions for me. Anybody looking for a mastering engineer, I'd love to work for you. Work on tracks. When I moved, my Scarlett 2i2 broke. So I would have to build up some clientele first, some commitments before I got the stuff that I needed again. I still got my monitors, got a few other things, but I don't have everything I need. So it's more about just sharing the knowledge with you. So that's more of what it's about. Next time we'll do a video on EQ like I said before. Take care. Hope you had a great night, and I hope this helps. Goodbye.